Hey, Smruti, congratulations. It's your graduation day, and absolutely you deserve a standing ovation for sticking with the process and making some amazing transformation for yourself. Congratulations, Smruti.
Thank you, Shivya. I really, really appreciate it. And you know this, you've been kind of every step along the way in this process. And I really appreciated the support, the light nudges, the quick motivation, the quick WhatsApp notes, some videos, everything that kind of helped kind of just help me show up every single day and just kind of keep up with the practices. So, I think it's been wonderful.
It's absolutely been a wonderful journey, Smruti, and you've been great. You've been so dedicated, committed. I couldn't have asked for anything better in a client who absolutely did everything to the T, right? I mean, the progression was amazing right from the get-go. As we started with the 5-minute practice and how we went along, incorporating so many different practices necessary for a healthy lifestyle. So I give it to you for showing up. It's mind-boggling to see the way you have transformed. Most importantly, the mindset, the beliefs, your perspectives around so many things, how it has impacted your personal as well as your professional life. So thank you so much, for your trust and confidence in me.
And yours in me, Shivya. I really think, over the course, we've obviously spoken about so many different things, but I feel like I got like a nice push to take on certain things that I would have never imagined I would, or things that were either personally daunting or I didn't want to go through it, or I was trying to put off, and you just kind of help like guide me along the way and sometimes help my hand, and or just I just felt empowered enough to take on, and the confidence to take on certain things that I wasn't particularly keen on. As I told you earlier, I went through a pretty rigorous medical routine that I wasn't very keen to even start with. And I kind of somewhere felt that this is the right time and I feel like I can do it. And I had kind of both the mental and emotional strength, and just, from a physical, nutritional perspective, the ability to kind of jump in and just come out of it, more importantly, and come out stronger, bigger, better than, I had. So, that in particular stands out for me over and above all the other things, right? When we started, I told you I wasn't looking for a certain number on the scale. I wasn't looking to kind of reach a goal weight, though I have lost weight, I have lost inches, I feel stronger and more active, but I think it's just the overall, like across several dimensions, the fact that it all kind of built up together and each dimension supported the other. And I feel like, this 1 year, I could do a lot more than I imagined, I set out to. Yeah, so it's been good.
Nice. I mean, it definitely took a lot out of you to make that proactive step, especially when you're faced with a health situation, right? You're kind of in crossroads about what should I do? Should I be following the medical opinion, or should I actually take things in my own hands and try out certain things and see how it works, right? So, absolutely amazing work there, in kind of taking things and facing those challenges, right? And I think even within a few months, when you got the blood work done, everything was okay, right? And your doctor didn't actually have to put you through any kind of rigorous treatment. That's a
No,
huge win right off the bat.
it was a huge win. 4 months in and out, had no idea when it started, when it ended. And I'd been putting this off for a bit longer than was ideal. But sometimes they say it's like the right timing, your head, everything has to be in the right place. And somehow, it just so transpired. And I felt like, all right, this is a good time and I'm ready to take on, because I feel stronger, more in control, and just ready to deal with whatever comes. Luckily, it wasn't anything. I just kind of, it was bigger in my head than, what the treatment procedure was. But anyway, it's done. It's like behind me, and I don't have to think about it ever again. So that's kind of nice.
Hey, so let's begin with what you came to the program with, right? What were your expectations? What was your goal? We'll start there and then we'll kind of recount your journey.
Absolutely. So Shruti, I think, it's tough even thinking back that far out to say exactly, what are the things I said. But I kind of remember saying, I'm looking at building sustainable long-term practices. I feel like, a couple of years of COVID, sitting at home, I had kind of, there were big changes in activity levels. I had put on a little bit of weight. I didn't feel as energetic. And I was kind of feeling like I was in a rut, and I knew this is not who I am. And it's not who I want to be longer term, especially in, like almost thinking like 20 years out in my retirement, things like that. So I was really looking to figure out what practices, what habits, and kind of how do I build to a state where I feel like I can follow certain things sustainably to kind of think about long-term wellness and managing like kind of some of the very typical age-related issues that are common. And my mother, my grandmother, they all have arthritis and a whole bunch of other things. I was just trying to like kind of that getting to 40 was like a thing for me, and I was a little worried about it, and I was like, all right, I need to take charge now. So that's kind of how this whole thing started. And as I said, I wasn't looking to like, all right, do I need 10 pounds, 15 pounds? But I kind of knew that the weight had crept up. I had, I've never had major issues with weight, but I could feel that this wasn't how I felt good. I had put on some weight. I was kind of looking to kind of take charge back. And I feel like, you've helped me understand the connected pieces to think about, right? And it's the smaller pieces. It's portion control, it's meal composition, it's are you thinking about your food in a balanced way? Do you have a good relationship with food? Um, and in my case, I'm pretty food motivated. I enjoy good food, and I have a strength in planning. And you were able to connect the two for me. Before this program, I would think a lot about, oh, what's my next meal? What am I going to eat? All that stuff. So I was thinking about food, but I was not doing anything about it. Now I'm like, I'm actively doing stuff on a regular basis to plan and make sure I have a really enjoyable, fulfilling meal. And it's kind of a fun activity. I really enjoy it. One weekdays, I'm like planning what happens next. I feel so much more like it's not just the fun part of it, it's the variety of it. Badri and I do it together. So it's kind of now become like a common theme for us. And in all of this, obviously, we're eating healthy, we're eating better, we're wasting a lot less food than we used to. Which to me, it's kind of high on the list because it's an important thing. And it's less reckless, it's less of those we eat out when we want to eat out, not because we don't know what else to do. And it's like that last minute, let's order pizza, let's order Chipotle type of food. So it's just more thoughtful. And when we're eating out, I want to eat like really nice food. I don't want to do like a last minute compromise. Who will get food to me fastest? I'm like actually thinking about, okay, this week on Thursday, I'm going to go to this place and eat that. So, it's one of those diets where I really kind of, that's the whole thing about this. In 1 year, it's been easy to sustain it. I've not had to make any compromises or choices where I'm not hanging out with people socially. I'm still doing all the things I used to. It's just better choices. And it's something that I can use, forever. But more importantly, when I get back to, what used to be a more regular work routine of travels, things like that, to know how to manage and kind of sustain in a way that doesn't kind of fall apart too quickly. So that's for me like a kind of a big thing over the course of, I think we also spoke a lot about activity levels and exercise and the types of things to do and stuff like that. And for a long time, I enjoy being active, but there are also constraints to being active. And I think COVID posed several large constraints around doing the things that I used to enjoy doing. And I think that's one of the reasons that some of the weight crept up. And I was a little frustrated about the whole thing because all the things I enjoy doing, I couldn't do, and then all that. But anyway, I think the other added feature to that for me was I was also about I like to do something, but I want to be really good at it, and until I'm really good at it, I don't care to do it. And
Yeah.
or I would make excuses to think about, all right, let's start on Monday. It's like the perfect day to start. Like, okay, let me start next week or next month or some perfect day when all the stars align. Because I wanted in my mind for the conditions to be perfect. And I think one of the big ahas in our journey was you helping me understand doesn't have to be perfect, just show up and have fun, right? That was the other thing. I was putting a lot more pressure on myself to be really good at a lot of different things. And I think in one of our conversations, we spoke a little bit about CrossFit classes and how long it took me. And that was a really good reminder. Like, you don't walk into something and be really good at it right off the bat. It takes a while. It's frustrating. You try and try, but I think the trick and the one thing you really control is showing up every single day or whatever day. And I think that was like a big thing for me because it really helped me kind of keep from procrastinating and waiting for the perfect day. Keep from expecting me or putting pressure on myself to be really good. Right. And also sometimes it wasn't like in this case, it wasn't the fear of failure or the fear of public failure in any way, because I was just pretty much biking in one corner in my room, like nobody could have known anything. But it was just like I was setting the bar so high for myself that I was not enjoying it. And it just required me to like walk away and say, you know what, I could just be on the stationary bike and watch TV. But as long as I'm doing something active and not sitting on the couch, it's a better choice than what I would have made. So let's just do it. Just show up, just do it, and don't wait for perfection. So I think that really, really helped, because I would have all kinds of excuses about, I'm a morning person. I like to walk in the morning, never mind evening. I'll wake up tomorrow and walk, right? But it was like once I started walking in the evening, even like 15 minutes in, it's perfect. Everything. So it just required me to like show up and do it for like 10 minutes. And then you're kind of in the hum of things and it's easy. So, that's kind of been a really big takeaway for me personally, because sometimes it's just about do 10 minutes of something. Doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be great. Just do it. And then you get sucked into it and you start having fun. And sometimes you're really bad at it and you'll figure it out. And sometimes, you kind of get better at it and it's actually quite fun. So that's, I would say kind of that's been like a really big takeaway for me, because it's really helped me do a lot of things that I could, I knew it was the right thing for me to do, but I had all kinds of excuses to not do it.
Wow. So beautifully summarized, Smruti. Thank you so much. Definitely, I think that's a huge transformation right there in terms of your mindset, beliefs, and the perspectives that you are holding on to for a really long time, right? And most importantly, you had it in you, Smruti. I mean, you're an amazing planner, such amazing organizational skills. You're rocking your professional space, right? And you had it in you. I just had to show the spotlight and say, hey, Smruti, this is who you are, right? Let's put this, together when you're trying to, form habits. So that really worked well. And the other thing is the mindset that you are coming with in terms of procrastination, the all or nothing mindset, perfectionism, right? And I remember how much you struggled to actually form biking as a habit, right? And we had to like literally dig into the reason why you're after it, and we found out that it's actually something that you wanted as a backup when winter hits you. It can be really hard for you to step out and do things, and that was the main reason you were after. So once we figured that out, it was a little easier for you to actually give it a try, right?
Absolutely.
And then of course, then the other thing was switching on the TV and finding some other motivation. Biking can be a very, very boring task, but how do you make that pleasurable, right? By focusing on something that actually keeps you glued on something else, and then just doing this as an activity. So that was another thing that we took care of. Nike is going to be very, very happy. We are using their jargon a lot, which is just do it. Right?
I think for me, it's just show up. If I show up, I will do it.
Exactly.
I just like get to the place and like fight inertia and just like tie my boots, like tie my shoes and walk out of the door. That's it. Then everything just kind of happens on its own, and I actually come back and I'm energized, I'm enjoying it, and it's so much more fun. I just have to tie my shoes every single day.
Absolutely. Action before motivation. That was one of the things that we actually took it head on right in the beginning when we were fighting to actually show up, right? So that was one thing. And the other thing that you summarized so beautifully is where Badri caught on so early. You had an amazing influence on him where he started prepping and planning the meals with you, right? Hey, what are you eating? I want to eat that kind of a thing, right? I want to be a part of what you're doing. So that was really nice. And it's important for you, Smruti. I remember the values that you mentioned early on is you want to have that positive influence around your first circle, right? Your Badri, your parents, your in-laws. It is important that you lead the way and show them that you want to be fit when you grow old, right? And it's very, very important. So I remember how you used to tag them along with all your outdoor activities, right? Trekking. Oh, talk about trekking. So you were able to get your endurance level to a point where you actually showed up for a trek, right? So let's talk about that, Smruti.
So did a lot of hikes. We went to, I think it was April or May last year. No, I don't know if it's last year. So 2021 May. Timestamps are just like starting to get crazy. So it was like fantastic. We had not been out for a while. We walk a lot. We're out and about. The dogs kind of keep us active. So it's always kind of been a fun thing. But in this case, we're actually doing some serious hiking. Each day was like a strenuous day, about anywhere between, we're talking about 12 to 14 miles, early morning, late evening, and in certain cases, even somewhat higher altitudes than Chicago, which is pretty much flat sea level. And I think, Shivadya, we spoke before that because it was a trip where we were traveling. There were a lot of moving parts. We were, we didn't have access to all the food options that we do while we're at home. And I think a lot of the meal prep and planning really helped with those types of things, right? As in, how do you sustain yourself? How do you guide yourself in a way that, you can kind of hold out for a long day and kind of, there's an endurance piece to it, but there's also kind of managing your sugar, managing your energy levels. And we did some really fun prep in terms of having all the right foods. We were also traveling during COVID, so we weren't entirely sure in terms of what would be available. Is there enough vegetarian options in the places that we were going to? But really, I think just walking in with kind of an idea of what are the types of meals we want to have really helped kind of look back and break it up into each day. There's some stuff that we carried from home. There's some stuff that we got there. But overall, it was just really fun. And, it was like a kind of a nice kind of a way to motivate ourselves in an otherwise, bleak year where we couldn't travel at all or do anything terribly fun. So that was fun. In fact, once when COVID was a little kind of lower or things were a little bit better earlier in the year last year, I was also able to go back to CrossFit class, do some of my yoga classes. So that was fun for me because it was like a very narrow window of time, but it was good to kind of get back and do some of the things that I enjoyed. And it was easier to get back than I imagined in my head. So, a lot of the activity levels that I maintained and the things that I was doing outside of helped me kind of get back to it a little bit faster, because I was like, wow, 2 years or whatever, a year and a half of nothing and then going back. So I was a little worried, and it kind of worked out well. So overall, I just, feel kind of happy in terms of how the year has played out. but also kind of how much I'm enjoying getting back to the things that are fun for me.
Wow, that's great. I mean, so you noticed you were getting stronger mentally and becoming more resilient because a short break didn't mean anything to you anymore, right? Because you were banking on the habits that you had built in your life and how easily you were getting pulled back to those habits automatically. You didn't have to do much. You just had to show up, right? Come back
Absolutely.
home, and then everything that you had, the system and the structure that you had put in place, most importantly, meal planning, grocery shopping, meal prepping, all of those were already in place. And even when you were out, I remember you said you were much more in control of your choices because of all those practices, right? Never once did you feel like you kind of let yourself go mindlessly. That is
No,
another thing. Mindfulness was something that we practiced a lot, especially with your meditation, showing up
absolutely.
for it, and
Yeah.
operating with a flexible mindset and not being very restrictive with yourself again. Showing up for yoga on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon is absolutely fine, right? Again, that is something that we figured out. And
Yeah.
again, your strength and your resilience went up. Your endurance has gone up. CrossFit classes, again, we use that analogy to kind of get you into biking because, hey, you remember, right? You remember, I mean, you remember the first CrossFit class. You didn't walk in there with amazing strength, right? You had to kind of slowly build that in, and then you remembered, hey, yeah, that's right. So I don't have to be perfect when I get on that bike. It is going to be hard initially, but it is going to get better.
Correct.
So a huge mindset change right there, Smruti. Now let's talk about your body composition. I mean, you were definitely not after it, but things started changing, right? So can we talk about that, Smruti?
Absolutely. And Shruti, on that, I think you and I had several conversations, and it was about creating an environment where, you know, you feel ready to take on things and you're not, again, like it's insight, it's in your mind, and find like small breaks to do things. So if you remember, I had like a set of weights right underneath this very table that we're, at. Um, all day long, I sit here. In fact, I feel like I haven't left this room in like 2 years in some ways because this is where everything happens. This is like my office, but kind of having access to things. I have a yoga mat over here. I would do like a few ab exercises and some crunches. Early in our practice, I had a minute-long plank that I used to do. So it was just like, this room kind of became an extension of, beyond my office, kind of small things that I would do. So after some of our calls, I'd have like the yellow post-its right in front of me, right on the screen in the corner that said, just show up, just do it, like, things like that, that we'd have spoken about, that would have resonated and that would kind of help me basically show up the next day. So, you were probably keeping better track of this than I am, right? Because, I did turn in some weights and measurements across the board. But I think over the course, I lost almost 10 pounds. It's about 5 kgs. And in terms of inches, again, I'm not sure exactly how much because I didn't, sometimes I did centimeters, sometimes I did inches. So it kind of became all jumbled up, but it was not very good at measuring. But I have lost inches, and if you look at the photos, I think just the muscle tone, just what, my arms and my shoulders, and there is a pretty noticeable difference over the course, especially if you look at some of the early set of photos versus some of the, close to the end. So it's been really good. And, especially strength wise, being able to endure longer periods of activities, kind of feeling stronger. You've nudged me to take on some bigger weights than I would typically do. So that, so things like that have been, I would say the big differences over the course of this year, that, we've been together. And it also kind of gives me the confidence, courage to kind of take on a little bit more. I feel like I can nudge myself instead of taking a 10-pound weight to a 12 or whatever that is, depending on the weight, and kind of doing that. And, I feel like you've always, especially your videos of what you are doing are always inspirational for me. Sometimes like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is too much. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I should try this. So, it's just been overall, I probably still am on that journey. So I can't claim that, this is it and we made it. But it kind of has helped me think about kind of strength building a little bit differently and not worry too much about injuries. Like I would kind of hold off on certain levels or pushing myself too hard or taking on kind of a larger weight than I would have imagined. But I feel like small changes, every pound, small changes, small nudges, and you kind of build up. And I feel, that I'm on that journey and I'm kind of doing more than I did a while back, and I feel stronger to take on more.
Wow, that is definitely so beautiful. It's nice how you put it. Like you kind of noticed your own limiting beliefs, right? That was stopping you in the tracks and was not letting you progress. And you kind of faced it head on and said, "Hey, how about I try this?" Without any expectations of how it's going to turn out, right? Without setting rules or wanting to show up perfectly. But hey, let me just experiment with it. Maybe I'm capable of doing it. Right. So fantastic work there, Smruti. And you noticed your work capacity improve as well, not feeling any fatigue or tiredness, mid part of the day. The other thing was strength improvements. And
Yep.
And of course, the body composition changes is mind boggling because it was not something that we were directly after. We were not
Correct.
behind numbers, right? We were all about setting in some system and structure in place, doing some practices over and over again, improve consistency with those, building some health promoting habits. And the outcome was a result of that. We never expected for it to happen, right?
Correct.
How
I
how does
never
that
walked
make
in.
you feel?
It feels very good, Shividya. Like, I have to say this, like I never walked in, even in our very first conversation, even before we signed up to do this, you're like, what is your goal? And I was like, look, I'm not chasing a number on the scale or a BMI or one thing or inches. I'm kind of looking to make this sustainable. And I really do feel like, despite not looking at, any one of these, the fact that it's an outcome and it's now something that I have sustained, like over the holidays, over Thanksgiving, over Christmas, over Pongal, I have made really good choices despite like not kind of giving up on anything or saying, oh, this is not something I eat or none of that, but just building a stronger set of kind of habits and systems that help me keep on track and make good choices. I think it's all about the right choices, right? So I feel really good, and I just feel so much more it's difficult to say this in a way that doesn't sound like, kind of cheesy, but so much more confident, right? You feel like your clothes fit better. I don't know, like after 2 years in yoga pants, I actually felt like I want to try out some of my old clothes, and they all fit really nicely, and I felt tremendous about it. So, it just feels vain as I say it, but it's a very nice feeling because I did know, for me, my self-image with this weight was not what resonated. So it kind of worked out nicely and I kind of felt good, just, small thrills, but it was exciting. But overall, I feel like, my energy levels, my strength levels, my resilience. I recently did like a 90-minute CrossFit class and I felt really good. It was not something I've done in a very long time.
Oh
And the
my
fact that
God, to sustain a 90-minute class in CrossFit is insane. Nice work.
Shivya, I think that's the whole thing, being able to understand what the class looks like. How do you pace yourself? How do you kind of think about, kind of endurance long term? You don't burn out in the first 20 minutes and, things like that. I think a lot of it is part of kind of the whole practice that we've been on, right? It's knowing what you're walking into and kind of how do you sustain yourself through some of those longer periods, some of those shorter bursts, and what does it look like? So I think overall it's been really good, both from a health wellness perspective, but also from a kind of a self-awareness, self-confidence, and just kind of understanding emotionally where your head's at and why are you doing or feeling the way you are feeling.
Yeah, beautifully said. I mean, so I remember, just within a few months, right? I think you were kind of trying out your clothes from the attic or something, like something that you had stored away, and you felt so good. You never expected your body composition to change, even though you were not seeing much changes on the scale, right? So your body was
Right.
actually changing, and you felt so good about it. You said, "Oh my God, I'm finally getting back to work, and I'm able to fit into these clothes from long back that you had stored away." So this just proves over and over again that it's your behavior and your consistency that gives you that outcome, right? Fantastic example and a role model right there for what it stands for. And so another thing was initially, let's talk about the power of 5 minute habits. Smruti, if you can share with me your experience of going through that process.
Right. I think, Shivadya, the way that you built up the practice for me, and again, I'm guessing it's different for everyone because there's such a personalized journey we go through depending on what our goals, what our strengths, what our preferences and needs are. But for me, I think just the sequence that you helped me select really worked, because there are things that we started working on. I think we started with just understanding meals, portions, meal composition, meal prep. And a lot of our early activities were, if you had a 5-minute break, what do? Right? I would go soak lentils for a next meal. I would go get the fruit and set it out so it's front and center. And I remember to eat it, because if I'm creating the environment and the right systems, I knew I would do it, because it wasn't something that was not, it was never difficult for me. It was just out of sight, out of mind, and a whole bunch of inertia and some bad choices along the way. So it really was kind of finding these 5-minute breaks, both one to like get away from just this sheer like zoom in, zoom out way of life, but kind of using those breaks to prep, using those breaks for small exercise activities, because there was a time when I was doing like ab crunches or push-ups at that time. A whole series was about meal prep and kind of just figuring out what you're doing. So it really helped kind of build small habits and sustain small habits, but also kind of help me get a break from whatever else I was doing, pay attention. A couple of, I think my 5 minutes break were to get a snack at like 10 a.m. So I'm not making poor choices at lunch. So I think, each of those things really helped, kind of take stock, plan things, just kind of, sit back, relax, and take a breather, meditate, things like that. And we kind of switched a whole bunch of things around. Sometimes it was morning activity, sometimes in the evening, sometimes it was meal related, sometimes it was more, kind of thought regulation related, but it really helped. And I think it all helped add up one over the other, because by the time we kind of came to the kind of, notice a name, take a 2-minute pause, it really helped, because those were the types of practices. I don't know if I had started with those, if I would have had great success personally with those. But the fact that they followed certain things, the sequence, and the fact that I had the confidence of being able to do some of the older things really well gave me the ability to kind of take on some of these newer practices and some of the tougher practices. I still feel like notice a name is something I work on and I continue to work on. But the fact that I had that baseline and a foundation and the confidence that I can do some of those things, I think really helped me kind of keep up and keep going, even when it was tough and even when I didn't do it right. And even when I felt like, oh, that was a missed opportunity. I completely lost my temper when I shouldn't have. But it gave me the confidence that the next time, I can do it and I will do it and I'll do it well. So all of these small practices, I think, really helped. But in my case, I feel like the sequence was particularly good and worked really well for me.
Thank you for sharing that, Smruti. And oops, my video is gone. 1 second. So yeah, definitely it's a two-way street, Smruti. I mean, I attribute it to the communication every single time. You showed up for these coaching conversations and you were so open and communicating really well about what was going on in your life. So I could quickly pivot and tell you, hey, I think this is what we need to work on. What do you think about it? Right?
Yeah.
So it works both ways. I remember the conversation we had when I think it was after the nutritional practices that you mentioned about a situation. I think it was at work or at home. I don't remember exactly. Mostly it was personal, I think, where you kind of blew your top and you said, hey, this is what is happening. So that was the right time for us to introduce that notice the name concept and the
Right.
pausing, right? So
Right.
thank you, Smriti, for communicating so beautifully well and openly sharing your challenges so I could coach you better in your journey, right? Let's talk about the nutritional practices, because soon after we started, you said, hey, I don't feel like I'm on a diet. Let's go a little deeper into that.
Honestly, I did not feel even once. And in fact, I'm pretty open about kind of what I'm doing and stuff, but there's not a single time where I've had to explain to anyone why I'm eating, what I'm eating, or what are the choices I'm making. It's been something that's very easy to practice both for Badri and me together and enjoy. And it's been something that's been very easy to bring others along into when we've had guests, we've had friends visit, we've had people kind of staying over for long periods of time, all kinds of combinations. And there's never a, what is going on? Are you on something? No, we're just eating really thoughtful, balanced, good meals that we really enjoy. And Srivide, I think one thing that I really want to call out in the nutritional practices, right? I think it started with small things. I started with a kuritattu early when we started.
Yeah, Anusha's the inspiration, I think, right, from the
Right,
group.
I think so. And that was fun. It kind of helped me visualize how to think about food. I was kind of doing, the measurements, all of that. But then it kind of became, we spoke about eating slow. And just before that, I had started personally, I want to just get good at eating with chopsticks. And I realized how fast I'm eating with spoons and forks, because sitting in front of a TV, shovel, 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 20 minutes done, run back. And that kind of started as a practice where I'm like, all right, I'm going to start using chopsticks. Now I'm really fast with chopsticks. I probably should slow down anyway. But, those are the types of things. So that's for me, those are the kind of the fun parts of things, right? I think we spoke a lot about the types of food, good carbs, kind of preferred proteins, and especially for somebody who's vegetarian, it's largely plant-based meals, really good choices. You'd often send recipes, you'd often send tips. We spoke a lot about, how can we use, soups and stews and things like that to integrate all varieties of things. And that kind of became its whole thing, because we spoke a lot about grains and lentils. Recently, so for Pongal, I made Pongal with oats.
Nice.
It came out really well. Honestly, it was like creamier, nicer than oats made out of rice and, moong dal. So
More homogeneous, right? Probably like mixed in
yeah,
really
like
well.
the consistency is really good. It's really nice and creamy. It doesn't solidify quite the way the rice pongal does after it's down. And texturally fantastic. But on the fiber protein side, probably better than pony rice too. So it's kind of become interesting. So now we're eating rice. We had some friends over the other day, but now I'm like, it was a traditional South Indian meal. We had koramba, rasam, all of those things. But rice was a combination of white rice, kodo millet, and quinoa. So it was like three things mixed up and cooked exactly like we would cook rice, and we ate it exactly like we would eat, whatever basmati or white rice. But it's kind of fun. So we've like now started integrating all kinds of things. Every meal has some lentil, even when it's pasta or something else that typically wouldn't. I throw in a can of beans, I throw in a can of chickpeas, I throw in something else. Just helps substantiate. You don't feel so hungry. You don't end up eating like that much white kind of starch. And, overall, it actually tastes pretty good too. It kind of gives you a nice textural element. You're not just eating something that, is singular. So it's kind of been fun. And now all kinds of experiments have been happening in the kitchen. And it's actually, that for me has been fun, because forget the diet part of it. Now I'm actually like, every day is like a new experiment. Like, how do you mix like these 5 things together and come up with something cool? And then we like talk about it and we share it with some of our friends and things like that. So it's kind of been a really engaging adventure that has been really fun for us, because we enjoy making food. We actually cook a lot at home, and it's been like something we've done together. So it's never felt like I have to put up or I have to follow a diet and I'm in this alone. It's just how we eat now.
It's become a way of life, right? And I have to give it to you for being so open and always being very enthusiastic and excited about a practice, right? Every time you introduce what's coming next, right? And oh, wow, okay, so this is something that I can do. I can buy hemp seeds, I can buy these kind of seeds, I can integrate it. And you got yourself a soda maker, right? To kind of get out of
wine every evening
right? You experimented with that and kind of moved away from alcohol, or the need for alcohol at the end of work, move away from those kind of beverages to figuring out something that works for you. So again, you came with a very curious mindset and that experimentation mentality to everything. So that really absolutely helped Smruti. So we talked about the nutritional practices, how the meal composition changed, how the quality of food also started changing, and you started enjoying it. It was definitely a way of life rather than following a diet, right? And choices were definitely better. So now let's move into the crucial piece, which is the thought and the emotional regulation piece, right? So can you talk a little bit about the power of the pause, Smruti?
Absolutely, absolutely. Shiviti, I think for me, it was kind of magical because it was just not part of this program and fitness and activity levels. It was just something that was so much bigger, broader than just this experience, in terms of, something that helps you across the board in my personal relationships, in just managing my energy at work. How do I show up? How do I not get frustrated with things that I don't control? And sometimes just being able to reflect back and understand, am I getting angry at the right thing for the right reason, or am I losing it for reasons unknown, untold? And sometimes, I think the self-reflection also helps you pause and understand that I'm misplacing my annoyance. I'm actually frustrated with myself for procrastinating something so much, but I'm actually showing it on someone or something else for another reason. In my case, I think, I've been really good about regulating myself, like professionally or with friends and others, but I think the folks who kind of bear the brunt of the non-regulation are the folks that are like really like closest to me, my absolute kind of, loved ones and my family. And it's like, if I can be so regulated for the world and I have a nice wall up, and when the wall comes down, and especially after long days, you've been all day on a Zoom and things like that, that's when the wall comes down and, some of this stuff happens. So this practice really, I think, between the 2-minute pause to kind of help me make good choices in terms of how am I feeling, what's going on, and being able to name it. And then, the kind of the notice name piece in my head, they all kind of come together. The 2-minute pause helps me name and notice better. But I think those two really, as I said, I perhaps like have to continue working on it for a longer period of time. I can't claim I'm really good at it, but I catch myself doing it more often. And it also helps me in retrospect, let's just say I've had a flare up on about something to someone right now, but it kind of helps me reassess, take charge, and, kind of think about it and understand kind of what is it that I did that I would do differently the next time if I encountered a similar situation or a thing like this. So, it really helps in a lot of ways. And sometimes it's just about, sometimes I would just let some of this crap swirl in my head for like hours after. And sometimes now I'm like, no, this is just not worth it. Moving on. Let's think about something else, because this is not worth the energy, the emotion, or writing these emails in my head about what I would say to them. Just kind of walk away, because I think we got this. So it's been really helpful. It kind of calms my mind in ways that is probably very useful across the board for a whole kind of bunch of situations. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember two specific instances, one a personal instance as well as a professional instance, where you actually wrote that email, right? I mean, you're somebody who likes to kind of take care of things. You cannot just sit with a situation. You like to do things immediately, right? Get it out there and be done with it, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And this one time you actually wrote that email and you actually slept over it and said, let me just wake up the next morning and take care of it, right? And at that point you realize you didn't have to send that email anymore. It was already sorted in your head, right? Brilliant work, Smruti. Again, it's not at all an easy practice. In fact, even the first 2-minute pause is the most difficult thing. And then the rest of it actually sorts it out on its own.
Yeah.
But you have to introduce that pause between the trigger and that impulse. And that's what actually brings you back into mindfulness and understand what's really going on. So brilliant work there. And I also know that you started applying it to your food as well after we introduced that. So how did that go for you?
I think there were two things that happened at the same time. One was the eating slower, and then the 2-minute pause. I think these practices followed each other in relatively quick succession. I think that was useful because, even when I was, kind of serving myself, like before I started the practice, like before I started the meal, like, how hungry am I? Right? And I think we did an exercise or a practice around the hunger scale also. Is it a 7? Is it a 10? Do we need to eat now? Will I die, or can I hang around? Or am I just bored and am I just looking for something else to do? So I think that pause and that assessment really helped, because I think it kind of helped me think about meal times. Because initially, as you probably know, I was one of those, if it's 6 a.m. or if it's 7 p.m. or if it's 12 noon, it must mean I have to eat. I had a very Pavlovian relationship between time and food. And and sometimes that would be like, it would actually work me up, because in my head I've planned the whole day, and at noon I have to eat a meal and it's not coming through and I'm stuck somewhere. So this really kind of was one of those times where now I had to, this was kind of a not just a habit, it was like it's so DNA, like wired in my DNA, that I really had to like help understand that, one, I will not die if I didn't eat at noon. Everything will be fine. And just kind of getting a sense for hunger, right? As in, like, how hungry am I? How my emotions being affected by my hunger? Because that was for me like a big trigger. I'm a hangry person. If I'm hangry, things are not good. So all of that combined with the fact that I had to eat slowly, thoughtfully, it was tough for me to really. It was just like, I would see some of the women in our cohort like send like timestamps like 26 minutes, like things like that. I was like, there is no way. And I'm like the slowest eater in my family, so I already feel like I am slow. Like, how are they? So anyway, I think it really helped with, in my case, tangibly, it really helped me with managing portions, eating how much I need, not how much I think I need, or what is the size of the bowl or the container in which I'm eating. And sometimes it was just like, I can always come back. This food is not going away. This is not a hostile mess where, if you don't eat now, then that's it. Like, that's the end of it. There'll be no other.
Counter is closed.
Sometimes I would feel like, let me just like take more. Like, I'm like, what? It's my house. Like, nothing will happen. The food is right here. I can come back. But even kind of taking that pause between two servings and being able to assess, again, I was never kind of focused on reducing my portions or anything. In fact, as activity levels went up, in certain cases, sometimes I was even eating larger portions than usual, but it was more balanced. I didn't feel like I was just eating, kind of carbs. But in this case, I think it just helped me not look at food with a very like a scarcity mentality. Like none of this is going to end. There's enough food, there's ample food, and there is more food, and there are stocks of food. Like I don't have to worry. We'll figure it out. Take what you need, and then we'll come back and we'll revisit if you're still hungry. And then I think good choices around nuts and kind of dried fruits or fruits really help. I think that's why I think the sequence helped, because I understood what to eat if I felt peckish. I still eat a lot of things, like tattais and murkas and things like that, but it's not a meal, it's a snack. And I am in control, and I'm not like stuffing my face with a packet and feeling nauseous after it. Because that is not an unknown feeling for me. I've like gone through packets of grand sweets and afterwards regretted it, not for any other reason except really physically felt sick. Now, I don't.
That happens.
Yeah, now I don't feel like, in fact, Badri's parents recently sent a huge box of grand sweets. Crap, I told them not to, but they still did. All the stuff is in the freezer. We take out a packet, we go over it over a few days, we eat it only when we're together, we take small bowls. We're still enjoying it. It's delicious, but I don't feel so unhinged when I'm faced with a packet of something I really like. And I think that has been a big kind of, to a large extent, I think the pause, the assessment of the hunger, everything has kind of helped. When I'm bored, I feel I'm hungry. I would walk down and look for things. I would open the fridge. I'd be like, all right, so what am I going to make today? Then I'll be like thinking like 3 meals ahead. Now that things are planned, I don't have to go through all of this, and my excuses to eat are not driven by, boredom, but, good choices. And it's been just easier to sustain through long periods. Like it's winter right now, it's negative God knows what degrees. It's cold, it's boring. I'm sitting at home. It's just like the perfect time to go indulge in something. And I do, but mindfully, thoughtfully, and in like controlled ways that I don't regret after the fact. So
yeah, that was a very, very important thing where you mentioned that, yes, I do indulge. I don't feel guilty after. That's a huge thing.
Absolutely. And, I feel like, so when I received this packet, initially, like long back, I'd be annoyed. I'd be like, why did you send this to me? I am trying so hard to, be in control, and you're just spoiling it for me and things like that. But now I'm like, I am in control. It is there. I've kind of hidden it, so it's not very visible. So, I am still managing my environment, but at the same time, I don't feel like I'm out of control and I have no control over my choices. I still control my choices. I will still choose to eat it, but, I don't have to, blame anyone else for any of my actions.
Wow, that is huge. I mean, a big transformation right there, huge win. And I remember this time that you started using chopsticks, right? Learning to use that as a skill. And then you said, hey, I'm actually getting better at it. I'm eating faster. That was a nice thing that you shared there. Most importantly, your identity changed, Smruti. Remember how we dug into your past and your childhood, and you actually grew up as a child who would be fed every time you were cranky, right? Oh, let us not get her cranky. She's hungry. Let us feed her. Used to be the story of your life. and how that has impacted your adult life, right? Where you were actually, that was a story you carried with yourself. Hey, I am sorry, I get really cranky and hangry and I have to eat. You're very, very structured and disciplined kind of a person where everything had to fall in place. And this slow eating was a monkey wrench into that, right? I mean, understanding your hunger and all of that, I'm like, okay, you know what? Hunger is not an emergency. I can actually pause, stay calm, and make a very, very mindful decision around it.
Correct.
And I remember this one time on a call, you had this half-eaten apple. You said, I didn't have to go through it. Remember, Smruti?
Yes.
One of those early morning calls, you had a half-eaten apple and you said, hey, I just have it here just in case, I feel hungry. I'm not going to go by the time. So even if it meant that, oh, fruits are great for your health and it's great, you absolutely did not feel the need to have it or be forced to have it. So that was a big change there. And again, the way you kind of shaped your environment, you got the fruits out. I remember the pomegranate and the hard to cut fruits. You let Badri take care of it. Pineapple especially. Right? Put it in boxes in the fridge where you see. Again, that's an important thing. And the huge thing has been about the stories that you're telling yourself. That changed. I am this person who cannot wait until, when I'm hungry. Changed to, hey, I can actually calm down and make a mindful decision. So huge identity shift right there, Smruti. So quickly, if you can talk about how your mindset, perspectives, and beliefs around food, eating, your weight, your body, how has that changed over time?
I think overall, Shivadya, I think a lot of how, I can't claim I had very poor eating habits because, nutritionally, things haven't changed dramatically, but I have improved the choices and I feel like I have a better handle on kind of the composition and the quality of meals than I used to. I think what's changed for me is I also didn't have a bad relationship with food. I had a very good relationship with food, but I think my dependence on and how much emotion I attached to food in a way that drove a lot of how I think about food, how I think about how I feel if I have or do not have food, how obsessively I worry about where my next meal is coming from, and all of that. I think a lot of that has evolved. This also helped me plan a little bit differently. If I'm going out, if I know where I'm going, I take the time to figure out kind of what does it look like and do I need to substantiate with something earlier or later if I don't have any control on the choices that I'm making. Where I do have great control, then kind of having and spending the time to enjoy it and really relish the options instead of, kind of thinking about it just as, oh, wow, I spent so much time making it. Now it's so much fun that it doesn't feel like it's a big chore, and we've just gotten really good at assembling meals because meal prep kind of goes a long way. And just kind of, knowing that I think that whole hunger scale is a big piece of all of this. For me, there was no hunger scale. There was just hungry or not. It was kind of binary. And for me, like if I'm hungry, it's an emergency. I have to have food. Otherwise, everything breaks down. But now it's so much more of a scale. And so much more of scale in a good way where I can make good choices. I don't feel overcome by hunger in a way that I'm acting out. In fact, this is like a big joke for Badri and my sister's husband because they keep laughing about how both of us, like me and my sister, have the same issue. When we say we're hungry, we mean we want to eat right now. When both of them say they're hungry, it means after several hours, they would consider a meal. So we were so, and I feel like now we're kind of closer on the spectrum, right? As in I can say, hey, you know what? I think in a couple of hours we should eat something. So should we start prepping or not? And it doesn't feel so frantic, so emotional, and as if something will be withdrawn or will be lost if I didn't do it at the crack of a certain time. So it just feels like, I don't know, it just feels like I'm in control and I'm not slave to a time in a way that it's easier and saner choices. And honestly, like nothing bad happens if anything kind of moves up or down by half an hour or 40 minutes or an hour or even two for that matter.
Nice. So again, the fear of missing out, right? Hey, I have the box of satay lying there and let me just finish it right now. What if I don't get it later? That isn't there. The scarcity mindset, right? So a lot of things have changed about your beliefs and your mindset, Smruti, and that's amazing work there. So if we can talk in terms of deep health perspective, this is all about deep health, right? Not just about the scale or the way your body composition is changing, but if you can quickly rate yourself in the physical domain, where did you start with and where do you think you are? Give me two numbers.
I think what I started with was probably, 5-ish or 6-ish. And I feel like, kind of a consistent 8, 9, like something that doesn't change easily day over day, month over month, but kind of stable, in control. And I feel like I could say that even if the day looked very different, or even if the month was very busy, or even if I had a lot going on, because it's not just when it's a good day or a good week or a good month, it's kind of how it feels longer term, like over multiple weeks. And I feel like I can say it's sustainably 8 plus.
Fantastic. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't change week over week or even month over month. It takes a long time, especially the biomarkers and the physical composition. So how about in terms of mental alertness, mindfulness, the mental health space? Where were you before and where are you now?
I was kind of in a good place. As I said, we've spoken about this. I've generally been a highly optimistic person who's kind of willing to take stuff on, and I'm resilient and I bounce back. But I feel, I think the difference now is that was then the given. Now I have the tools to understand it better and to regulate it better and to sustain it differently on days that are de-energizing versus energizing. Like there are some days that are just not built a certain way, and it's just like it just saps you. But even on those types of days, I understand what's going on. I know how to pick myself up. And I know how to recharge to come back stronger the next day, in a way that I think some of this is also self-care and kind of taking the time for yourself and making sure that when you feel depleted, you have the ability to bounce back and recharge. So I think it just kind of, you've just given me more tools and language to understand and apply in a way that I can do it thoughtfully. When I know if I do this, it means this. Then what I was doing in the past, which was somewhat hit or miss, or this is different, and I didn't see the connection between what I was doing and how I was kind of showing up.
So the consistency with your behavior has definitely improved, and also the understanding of what was going on behind the hood, right? Understanding the triggers and the environment and the people, and what was causing a certain kind of a reaction within you, right? How about your emotional space, Smruti?
No, I don't know if there's a big change other than the big hangry quotient on the emotional side, Shrivya. I think the big change is, the notice and name, I think, is a big driver in terms of being able to kind of be authentic at the same time, be thoughtful about how I'm showing up. And again, some of it is also controlling and regulating your emotions and kind of, guiding your emotions in a way that is, constructive instead of completely destructive and dysfunctional in a situation. So I feel like that's been the big change. And again, in those, you've given me the tools and the prompts to take stock, right? As in, I still have to do the work. There are days that I do it better than others. There are days that I don't do it well and I fail. But I feel like I have more language and something tangible to apply instead of being able to like not even describe what is going on and make sense for it myself. So I feel now even kind of the ability to even explain it to somebody and break it up in a way that people can understand, where was I coming from? Why did I feel the way I did? And sometimes, it's just difference of opinion, perception, and you can kind of, clarify it. But just being able to break it down and synthesize it in a way that makes sense, I think has been really useful. And somehow, again, the timing is right. I felt kind of emotionally stronger, mentally stronger, physically stronger to take on something like this than I would have been willing to take on at another time. Because I think some of this kind of goes together in a way that is difficult to explain, but kind of needs to happen. Because I got confidence from my activity levels, from the other things that I was doing, to be able to practice this a little bit more and try it out and kind of give it a shot, because I had the confidence that I could do the other things. And this was almost like the next challenge you have to achieve is this. And it just kind of was the right time and the right thing for me, because, these kind of go beyond the program and just physical fitness. It's so much more. And as you said, it's like part of the deep health piece.
Absolutely. So the clarity has been big in terms of absolutely understanding where you are coming from in that situation, right? So the insights that you gathered about yourself has been hugely helpful in understanding that, and also clearly communicating to the other party, right? Hey, this is what it is, instead of mindlessly kind of talking about certain things that may not be the fact, right? So, and another piece I remember, Smruti, we talked about how one of the practices towards the end was all about going out there and having fun, getting out of that limiting belief. So in this work situation, you're kind of finding it hard to experiment, but you just went along with the other folks and gave that a shot, right? So can you talk a little bit about that and how the outcome turned out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, Shivita, that was one of those, I think it stemmed from our growth mindset discussion, right? I think, a lot of it was about the need for perfection versus trying new things out. And I think we agreed to for me to take on things like things that I would normally say no to.
The dance, I remember, right?
Yeah. Because of some belief, either I'm not good at it, I will make a fool of myself, my belief that I will not enjoy it, or that, whatever, multiple reasons. And I had very logical reasons for every one of these things, because, it was all like, no, I know myself, I know who I am, this is all. But I think it also was one of those things where it's kind of finding small joys and doing things and kind of being okay with making a little bit of a fool of yourself, because in some ways it's actually quite endearing, and you kind of foster strong relationships. So there were things I did at home. We went, I think, for laser tag or something like that. It's not, I still don't believe it's my thing, but the fact that I was willing to, and I kind of had fun with it. And for me, in my case, the fact that even I said yes when every instinct in my body said no, and I had logical reasons. It's not the best use of your time. Why do you want to go? All kinds of things. And sometimes, I think the logic of, is this the best use of my time? Like my time is not worth that much. It's okay to like have fun. I think that, so as somebody who's a consultant who's charged for every hour of her life, right? Me, my time in my own head holds like this tremendous value, but I'm not like curing cancer. My time is not worth as much. So just being, able to like have fun, do silly things, be bad at some things, but let your head down and enjoy it. And in certain cases, those were actually very fun activities, like being able to like do some stupid like dance thing that I would never ever, I would shudder ever to do. And we had a good laugh about it. I was terrible at it, but it was fun and we had a good time. And things like that. We went to a climbing gym. I'm awful at it still, but I tried something new. I think these were like small things for me to remind myself to like try new things. And I think we spoke about this. It's also now part of my work performance objectives, because a lot of this is about helping with creativity, helping drive innovation, and that's a big part of my work kind of accountability. So it's kind of been something that I'm trying to do outside of kind of what we've signed up for, but kind of make it bigger, because I can see the value, and I, if everything goes wrong, I still had fun. If it all works out, it could turn out to be some cool things. So I think it's a little bit of a win-win. And it helps me do new things.
Beautiful, Smruti. And you learn to cut yourself some slack and also understand that not everything I do has to amount to some goal of mine, right? I think that was like a big learning. I remember that conversation.
Yes.
Right? I mean, you came with the mindset that every single thing that I'm doing has to amount to something, right? Was your story, and how that beautifully changed.
Yes.
And you were so open to exploring that. I mean, it's not an easy thing at all to share those deep beliefs and identity that you are holding on to, and speak about it, right? I mean, hey, this is who I am professionally. I'm so different personally. How do I kind of make it seamless? So brilliant work there, Smruti. Just a couple of things. I want to ask your feedback about the coaching experience and working with me as your coach. How did you feel?
Absolutely. Shruti, I've said this so many times. So, I've really, really enjoyed working with you, right? It's been a fantastic journey. I can't even believe it's only been a year or that it has been a year. Sometimes it feels like it's been longer, sometimes it feels shorter. But just the overall experience, the thought that you put into it, the systems you've created, and I think it's a combination, right? Our conversations are one-on-ones, but the fact that you're able to supplement it with resources that are useful, the app, I really use the app. I really enjoyed using the app. It's a great way for me to stay accountable. It's one of those things that helped me build some of those early habits, being able to kind of say I did it and post something related to it and kind of be accountable, I think really helped. I didn't end up using the WhatsApp group quite as much, but I really appreciate the community that you've created and how much that group kind of helps, supports, shares, inspires each other. I think that's kind of fun. It's really quite, it's really impressive what people are doing. Sometimes it kind of nudged me to take on more than I was thinking of. Sometimes it kind of showed me how well people are doing and kind of made me kind of, double up my, and you post the things that you are doing too, right? As in, stuff that, how you're feeling, how you're doing, and all that. So I think it's just the combination that really works, because it's not just conversations, it's conversations backed with action. And there are tools, there's systems, there's resources, there's literature to follow. And then there's a community to help each other. People posted recipes, people posted journals, vision boards. It's all kinds and all varieties of things. And there is something that resonates. It may not be everything, but something clicks and you try it out. Like the curry that somebody was using clicked for me. Something else someone did clicked for me. So it's just really quite wholesome in a way that is kind of, there's a very customized, personalized element, but there's kind of a fun group element to it. And I feel like you do a really nice job of balancing and figuring out who needs what, when, and sewing it up at the right time. So, it's really been tremendous.
Oh, thank you so much for this feedback, Smruti. Really appreciate it. And yes, the group is rocking with all of these wonderful, strong ladies, which you are a part of as well. And I know, even though you may not be contributing regularly, I know you were watching and you were getting a lot of nuggets from those. So fantastic work. And one last piece, what advice do you have for women who are on the fence about making this change for themselves and thinking twice about either investment or in terms of money, time, or energy, or just thinking about making this change? What do you have to say to those women?
Um, I'll say this: health, overall wellness, and kind of strong emotional health are big. I feel like women take on a lot more and often put everyone in the family ahead of their own needs, and often kind of, even though they know and understand the value of all of this, they kind of put themselves last. And I really kind of, I wouldn't call it advice, but my nudge would be like, put yourself first, because when families with strong women are helping equip themselves with good behaviors, good practices, and good, kind of habits, I think it helps a lot of people. So I feel like women can be far more effective in helping their families if they go through something for themselves than they would otherwise. I say this for education too. I support several educational causes. When you educate a woman, you educate a family. I feel the same way about this, because it's good practices. Families eat better, families are more active, and I feel like, it really helps. Plus, I feel like women, especially those who are kind of working, multitasking, have kids, COVID has been really brutal, right, for them,
Mm.
and all the things that they have to manage, juggle, and kind of still stay on top. This hopefully kind of gives them the tools, the skill sets to manage the stressors, because a lot of the weight gain or poor eating is because of stress eating, and I feel like there are more stressors than we care to have, and this is such a good way of being able to understand the stressors and kind of regulate and make good choices for yourself, the family, across the board. I don't know, for women, men, I don't care. I feel like everybody should focus on their long-term health. But women tend to be very influential in helping families improve. And I feel like it's a great opportunity, because you're not just investing in yourself, you're investing in wellness for, multi-generational wellness. You could probably
Mm.
influence your in-laws, your parents, your kids, yourself, and everyone else. So it's a big thing.
Wow, you absolutely hit the nail on the head, Stuti. There, when we change, we have the opportunity to change everybody. And when you're actually investing, it's not just investing in yourself, but changing the eating habits and activity levels of your entire family. I mean, that is the tendency of women, that we can actually influence a lot more people than just us, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Smruti. And I feel so happy and proud as your coach, because it's important for me as well as you, just as how you feel confident about graduating, that I need to feel that as well about you, that whether have I equipped you with enough skill sets and tools to take on this journey independently on your own and feel empowered and sitting in the driver's seat of your life and making those choices for yourselves, and be confident and feel that conviction that yes, I'm on this journey on my own and I can do it. So I can absolutely say you truly aced it. You're such a rock star, such a strong person, Smruti, and it gives me a lot of pleasure and pride to tell you that you graduate today and you can take on this journey confidently. Absolutely, the doors are open anytime you feel like, hey, I want like a refresher, I want to work on certain kind of skill sets, and you can absolutely reach out to me, and I'm here for you, Smruti.
I really appreciate that, Shivya. So, can I ask you a tough question? So, it's not a rating question, but just kind of overall kind of skills, sustainable skills, like pre-program and now. Do you have like a pre and a post rating for me?
Wow. First one that somebody has asked me. I mean, you truly aced it, Smruti. I can tell you, I don't want to talk about your before rating, but today you're at a 9 or a 10, absolutely. Right. You did come with a lot of great skill sets already in terms of your meal composition, but in terms of your emotional regulation and improving mindfulness, being present, there was scope for improvement there, and with your body composition as well, and putting in that time and effort and work into those practices was something that we worked on initially, and today you're absolutely at a 9 or a 10. So way to go, Stuti.
Good. I feel happy. I really do, because I feel like you worked very, very hard with me over this process. So I that's good, because I really intended to, and I put a lot of thought and effort into it. But it's also a testament of what you have done over the course of these months in terms of where we are today.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel extremely confident that you're going to ace everything that you're going to do professionally as well as personally. And I wish you all the best with everything that you aspire for, Smruti.
Thank you, Srividya.
Take care.
And I will
Absolutely.
and I'll meet you when I'm next in Madras. So I really look forward to that.
I look forward to it as well. I know that the trip got missed, but hopefully we'll get to catch up this year.
For sure.
Point. And we are going for that drink, okay?
You're on. We shall do that soon.
Take care, Smruti.
Take care.